And we're off. So right away, our runners are presented with a choice here. There is one item in logic and one additional item not in logic in the blue Brinstar area, which includes the Morph Ball location, which of course is in logic, normally the first location a Super Metroid player checks, as well as the ceiling energy tank the next room over. Both of our runners opting not to check those. Iris unfortunately taking a hit from the Octorok there. And ruining their tree pool a little bit. I think that might have been Hammer on the ledge. 100% agree with you, Thalphon. The audio of Super Metroid is just impeccable, creating this sense of dread the first time you hear it, yet being catchy throughout the rest of the time, all the other times you play it. It looks like we've got a red crystal on Desert Palace, and the remaining two Light World Palaces are going to be regular crystals. So that's normally a pretty good sign for some reasons and not as good a sign for other ones. It's always great to have to run fewer Dark World dungeons. They tend to take a lot more time, so seeing that is a good thing for that reason. And a lot of the time, Dark World dungeons have significantly larger numbers of item requirements, so our runners will be happy to see it for that reason. Unfortunately, if they don't get Dark World access early, then they're not going to be able to get to some of those other dungeons very quickly. And it looks like we're seeing the Shroom on Lumberjack Ledge, so that's going to be a nebulous thing for the remainder of the run. Both of them hoping that that not being required, because that would require an Aghanim 1 play. Both our players picking up a bomb along the way. That's going to help get them started at least, possibly farm some additional bombs on their way through the beginning of the seed here, hoping to find a couple. And speaking of quest items, Zentrigger picks up the shovel from the cave inside the Lost Woods. So already seeing a lot of those fetch quest items very early on. Zentrigger taking a slightly unusual route here, but a good one given the fact that they've picked up the shovel early on. Gonna go ahead and check around for some extra bombs here, making out pretty well, and gonna check that shovel location immediately, possibly a first sphere pickup for them. Power bombs, not a bad find. And then sort of doing a clockwise loop, whereas Iris is doing an anti-clockwise loop, a more traditional route through Kakariko. Zentrigger gonna check out Race Game here. And I believe that was a glove. That's gonna be worth picking up. And stream, please get a whole bunch of hype emotes in chat and welcome my fellow commentator, LJM.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah. I'm good. Normally I would some Metroid stuff, but I do other Metroid stuff.
Both of our runners picking up some interesting items at the opposite ends of Kakariko. So Zentrigger with that glove, Iris picking up a whole bunch of cash towards Zora's eventual shenanigans, along with the cane as well, and silver arrows. Heck, both canes. And Iris picking up the lamp here from the bottle merchant as well, spending some of that cash pretty early on. Meanwhile, zentrigger getting the blue mail, a nice early defensive item, going to prevent potentially a lot of, or making a lot of these early tricks a lot easier. And oh my gosh, the second.
For me, it's I say Iris for the first.
And both of our runners will be just looking for the Moon Pearl for Dark World access already. Still could be pretty trolly given that they found the lamp so early. So let's everybody cross our fingers and hope that that doesn't lead to agony.
I would say to head to the Moon Pearl, the hammer would be nice to have.
And while both our runners kind of retrace each other's steps here a little bit, I'd like to let you know a little bit about the sponsor of this particular tournament. Believe it or not, there is cash up for grabs. Currently a $400 first place prize, sponsored by Vi.gg. Definitely check them out. You can actually make bets on the various races in this SMALTTP randomizer tournament. With each additional bet, some of the commission will go towards enhancing that prize pool as well.
And there's now Iris with her Titan Smith.
And Iris also going to smartly check that shovel item and eliminate that possibility.
And try to get some bomb from the bushes.
zentrigger immediately going to put some of those gloves to good use and check out the back of escape here with their one remaining bomb. Probably still going to need to buy. And there's the meme beam.
At the beginning, I would say Spacer is a good item.
Oh, definitely. And certainly when paired with charge, makes it all the more attractive, but definitely going to make some of the Metroid clearing a little bit faster in areas where clearing the enemies is required or more optimal for. And zentrigger picking up a key in the rear of escape is going to push that a little bit further, especially having the lamp makes this a non-issue to check the rest of escape. Going to check out Dark Cross, and then the question becomes, do they reload to do the front of escape, or are they going to walk to it? And they are going to take the saving.
You can't walk to go to the front of escape from the back, because the gate is closed.
Certainly, but I think zentrigger is probably also looking to do what Iris is currently doing and kind of loop that uncle check-in with the front of escape. Probably a slightly more optimal play in their eyes, and it also gives them an opportunity to pick up some additional bombs here. Especially since I think they're lacking a proper weapon. They could use some cane strats, but they wouldn't get too terribly far. Although Iris certainly has a little bit more magic on hand and is going to be able to make that check a little bit.
I would say for escape, Cane of Soraya is a good weapon. Just don't despawn your block. Just use it and push it on the enemy.
Yep, and both of our runners are going to show us how well they've cut their teeth on A Link to the Past, and Iris rewarded with the sword for their effort.
By speaking of cutting you through the teeth, we got a cutting weapon.
That's excellent. And just a piece of heart here at the dam. zentrigger going to opt to pick that up early on. Probably not a bad play, given how scarce hearts can be early.
I will also take that, even with blue mail. And even if I had like 10 heart container on end.
Yeah, I think honestly, to me, it makes a little bit of a difference which game you find it in. You know, Super Metroid, you can kind of see it ahead of time a little bit more often, and maybe a little bit less likely to pick it up there. But in A Link to the Past, it can certainly make or break a low health situation. And zentrigger having an interesting moldworm cave here, picking up some nice items for their trouble, given that one of the moldworms actually crossed into the center there, which is pretty unusual.
I would say mirror and space jump boot are excellent items.
Oh, absolutely. The mirror could absolutely be required, especially given that Hera is a crystal in the seed. So zentrigger will be happy to have seen that so far. And then also, I think it was either the high jump boots or the space jump boots. One of them giving them access to very, very high locations called the can fly, and the other one just making things generally faster. Iris took an intentional death down there. You saw them hitting themselves with bombs so that they could get to the front of escape much faster.
Commonly known as Death Sword.
Right you are. And zentrigger going to opt after Ice Ride Cave to return and do some other checks, as opposed to possibly fake flippering. And that's a perfectly reasonable idea at this point in the seed. They didn't quite have enough money for Zora, and without the Moon Pearl, it would really just be getting information there. They wouldn't get anything other than one single check from the old man under the...
Yeah, and breaking the logic early in the game is not always a good idea. Even worse if you have two games.
Certainly, with the amount of progression we've seen so far, the mitts, the and the mirror, and possibly the cane as well. Oh, and there's Varia as well for zentrigger off of the old man on the mountain. It can get very difficult to decipher what the seed is trying to direct you to do if you break too often and too early.
Since I was not here at the beginning, for obvious reason, did we have that int check? Yep,
I'm sorry, a which check?
int check. Oh yeah, we're not in V30. Sorry.
So zentrigger, sort of reading the logic here and saying, well, the game gave me the mirror as well as a glove upgrade, so it would probably be a good idea to check out Hera early, and I think that this is a smart play, given that they can full clear this entire dungeon, even if the basement is required, which would require a lamp.
As of now, it is not required, but only Moldorm and Big Chess will tell us.
I think there's also the the regular big key chest that's right there in front of the big chest is one more. So, but they're looking for... Yeah, so they haven't found any items yet, and normally you can find 2 items in Tower of Hera. So that's what zentrigger is hoping to find before or right after clearing Moldworm. And it looks like Iris may be choosing to do the fake flipper here. So the way that fake flippering works is you want to be essentially 1 frame away from the screen transition there, as far left as you can get without advancing the screen, and then you jump in and you hold to the left at the same time, and there's a split second as Link enters the water where you can move a pixel, and if you move that pixel and scroll the screen as you hit the water, then you get this fake flipper status that lets you swim without having the actual flipper's item. Unfortunately, that's not going to pay out, just 5 rupees, but the information is still helpful.
And while you were explaining that, zentrigger just got his Moonpearl.
Oh, that's an excellent find, but it makes me wonder why they decided to bail so quickly on Tower of Hera, given that it's a crystal, and they have to go and finish it eventually.
I would say no real mean of weapon like a sword. So Kain of Samaria is not really good against Moldorm.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I didn't notice that only Iris has our sword so far, because zentrigger hasn't opened up the front of escape yet. That's a great point. And now having the Moonpearl, it could be potentially a long time before zentrigger checks the beginning of escape. Iris picking up their Variasuit. Zentrigger going for an interesting check here, which is definitely possible without the Morph Ball, but going to be a very difficult trek to get back without the Morph.
But it's not worth for only 50 rupee.
Agreed. Looks like zentrigger is going to say there's maybe a couple other checks that can be done here with some clever wall jumps and the high jump boots, including speed booster and the item in front of speed booster, the item in the first item in the reserve room only, not the rest of them, and then possibly the wave beam item.
I was gonna say with where it was going, I would say speed booster location. But could check a Bubble Mountain and reserve thing if you haven't said it already.
Yep, just the first one. The 2 in the back are going to require the Morph Ball. You're absolutely right. And now Iris making their own play into Hera and going to be at a slight advantage here, having a weapon that's going to be able to more easily dispense.
And now zentrigger, since it doesn't have a speed booster, the lava, normal and vanilla, will go up, but it doesn't have speed booster, so the lava level stay the same.
There's a couple other instances like that in Super Metroid. So, for example, if you're not familiar with the randomizer, the bomb Torizo fight at the very beginning of the game also will not trigger unless you have the Morph Ball bombs. And in the randomizer, you're a lot less likely to find those Morph Ball bombs early enough to trigger the bomb Torizo fight. And fortunately, both Iris and zentrigger have now shown us that they found both items in Tower of Hera. So just going to be either a key or the map locked in the basement, which will certainly not be worth their time. Oh, look at this.
I saw that. Totally.
Zentrigger's gamble paying off here, rewarding them with the flippers. Now, not a huge deal in the early game, not providing large access to a lot of locations given that they have the Moon Pearl, but still some really nice information and potentially later on in the seed going to provide an advantage if Swamp Palace is a desirable location to check for items.
I would say it can provide for a great advantage because it can act from. It would be hard to access a swamp with from a Village of Outcast, but it's accessible and can totally be worth it since they have a mirror.
Yep, that first chest in Swamp Palace is a really, really trolly one. It can certainly hold absolute gold, but you hope that there's never a good item there, am I right?
Like, you don't want that chest to be the troll hammer in there.
Yep, absolutely. And I know that's happened at least once in probably a weekly. And Iris now making their checks into Norfair as well. We'll see if she decides to go and check some of the other locations. And unfortunately, not getting the enemy very quickly there. And so they have to wait for it to circle around the room and come back before they can escape from there. And zentrigger gets that somewhat tricky wall jump to escape with their flippers in hand.
So Sinus, where would you expect zentrigger to go next with his flippers?
Well, it kind of depends on how zentrigger's feeling that the seed is going. It looks like they're currently going to check the potentially three, at least two available items at Eastern Palace and going to make some progress there. But if they were feeling behind, I think they might try to press the only real advantage they have with the flippers, which is to check the item on Zora's ledge there. That would be the only thing that might catapult them into a lead as a result of picking up those flippers early.
And we just got our map check from Iris in the Dark World, which the pendants are Total Rock, Green Skullwood, and Thieves Town.
And those are some decently desirable ones for pendants, especially Turtle Rock. You sometimes hope that you don't have to dive in there, but still definitely a potential location that they may have to check. So it remains to be seen whether that's going to be a bit of good fortune or bad fortune for our runners.
if you see Turtle Rock as a pendant, you don't want to see an ice rod.
Given that they've got the red cane already, though, that could be an indication that Turtle Rock may eventually come into play as well. Or not. That's, again, there's no real way to tell just yet, but that has to be sticking in the back of our runners' minds a little.
And also, since we got also the red cane, Misery Mire, which is a crystal now, is completable.
Yep, so with the various suit, there's a way to get to Misery Mire without the flute. And unfortunately, zentrigger not getting a whole lot of value from their items in Eastern so far.
And to finish here, the sentence on the Misery Mire access is going from Meridia in Super Metroid to go to Misery Mire, if I remember them correctly.
The Meridia teleport is for the Dark Ice Rod Cave area, sort of that area. It's the area above the Golden Terizo in Lower Norfair that takes you to Misery.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if that wasn't that, it should be well, Norfair.
And yeah, so but that current technique not required in normal logic, that would require a lava dive, certainly made easier again by the various suit and the high jump.
As of now, it cannot be the intended way, cause we don't have gravity suit. But if we add, but when we'll get it, it can be the intended way.
Exactly. And zentrigger coming up on their last possible item check here. Just a piece of heart. So that big chest that we missed them opening must have just been a dungeon item.
Wow, 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 wow.
Pretty much. Now, Iris is in an interesting position here, choosing to dive Thieves Town, and I really wish I had paid a little bit more attention to their side of the stream, because there are 4 potential items in Thieves Town, but Iris looks like they have found a key, so potentially not going to be able to make one of those checks. In fact, it was the room just to the left of the large urn there in the basement of Thieves Town that unfortunately requires a hammer, which our runners have not yet found.
So she's probably gambling on that.
Indeed. And Iris using red cane strats to start out on blind here, having an excellent placement of the
Red cane strat eye.
Yep. And it looks like blind is cooperating by staying on the top generally, and an excellent fight. That is not easy. The red male certainly doing some of the heavy lifting there and making it a little bit easier for Iris, but with 4 hearts, that's a scary fight. And zentrigger now checking the front of escape is going to be probably a little bit frustrated finding the sword here in the first. Now, Iris still has Bombable Hut here to check, but because of the early Titans myths, they're also going to be able to come and go freely from the bottom of Dark Kakariko and make some of the checks on freeing the Dwarven Smith here, and having the mirror is going to make that an even easier check, and possibly looping that in with Cave 45 and a couple other checks in Dark World. This is good, smart routing, and also doing something that I sometimes forget to do, and that is you should do Digging Game before you pick up the Toad, the Dwarven Swordsmith, because the Gatekeeper here won't let you in to play the Digging Game if you have someone following you. So Iris very smartly taking care of that first.
I would say if you get an hammer at one of those spots, that's excellent routing, cause you can do hammer peg.
Yep, that would certainly be a nice find to be able to tie that off, but still going to be missing the magic bat check, unfortunately, because that mushroom, and this is new information for you, LJM, but they actually checked Lumberjack Cave and found that the mushroom was there, so they're not going to be able to fake powder, and that's going to be something that's bothering them a little bit.
Oh. Maybe Agassi? If mushroom yields something important, Agassi insight?
Could be. Zentrigger now also going to opt to head into Dark World. Let's see if they may potentially check Skull Woods as well. And that looks like the play that Zentrigger is going for. I really like this early check here because typically if you find an item in Skull Woods, the logic is expecting you to double dip a little bit. So having a sword here lets you check pretty much every chest except for the last one and Mothula in this dungeon. And there's only 2 items, so potentially you're going to find an answer pretty quickly here.
If you add the we found gravity suit, you know the routing for Misery Maya we talked earlier? Now
Yep.
it's available.
Absolutely, a great point, and Cave 45 paying out very, very well. Having both suits early is going to make navigating most of Super Metroid a snap, but unfortunately still missing that Morph Ball. Going to make it difficult to get around, so our runners hoping to find that, and given how wide open the Link to the Past seat is, it could be a while before they find it.
You saw that wave beam, right?
Oh yeah. Wave Beam mostly providing damage in the randomizer, but there are some tricks that will be enhanced from having the Wave Beam, so not something you'll want to be turning away.
For those who don't know, Wave Beam in Super Metroid let you pass through walls, if I'm right.
That's exactly right. It'll also pierce some enemies. Some of them cannot be pierced, like Ridley, for example. And Iris using their last 2 bombs to get into Hype Cave, so called because there are 5 easy, very accessible items there. And picking up their Master Sword, they'll be happy to find that. Or perhaps not. Maybe could still be an Agaseed finding that Master Sword there.
I would call that hype cave, somewhat hype with Master Sword and Reserve thing. Mainly Master Sword, cause the damage between fighter and master is huge. And there are talking about damage, Spacer is now useless.
Yep. And there's one other less often talked about benefit of the Master Sword, and that's that it actually has better reach than the Fighter Sword. And that's something that you start to appreciate the more that you play and speedrun this game, and our runners will be happy for that.
Also, Sword Beam. Sadly, Iris, with no bombs, can check Akena's cave.
Yep. So there's a couple other odds and ends checks here that Iris can do. And gonna be really hoping that that those flippers aren't required. So they can go back and enter the Dark World here and possibly do the top half of Dark World, looking at Graveyard Ledge and a couple other minor checks on their way through.
When you said flippers are required, they are required because Swamp Palace and Ice Palace.
Oh yes, they're absolutely required in the seed, but whether they're going to be required right now for Iris to go and find or not. But certainly having those flippers would allow them to cross over the top half of the Dark World and check out the Pyramid as well as the Catfish, and maybe look at Palace of Darkness as well.
Yeah, I would say it was not possible, but they got flippers, so and they got a ledge where they can return to lands from it.
Yep, so that could potentially turn into an advantage for zentrigger here. Iris picking up their wave beam, and zentrigger gonna be pretty happy to find their red mail here at the chess.
At the chess game. As a senior, we got Desert Palace and Swamp as Crystal 5 and 6. Before getting the Fat Fairy, we need either a book or going to Lower Norfair and using the mirror.
Yep, and Iris potentially diving a little bit deeper than zentrigger and Skullwoods there. I'm not sure Zen checked the other item there, but just finding the wave beam and 100 rupees, so that dungeon is completely dry, and our players won't be heading back there unless this is a pedestal seed.
Not, Green Pendant, Sashwala.
Oh, that's right. Is Skullwoods our green? Oh yes. So potentially 2 more items from Skull. Iris checking out Graveyard Ledge here, and I'm still left to wonder what was at the original Morph Ball location here, because if it was vanilla Morph Ball, our players could potentially be very frustrated by that particular outcome.
Oh, they didn't check that yet?
No, they both immediately went to A Link to the Past, so they've explored much more Norfair than they have Criteria.
Oh, that could be huge. That's like one of the things you check first. And zentrigger with the gravity suit.
Yep. Iris now retracing some of zentrigger's steps, potentially thinking about heading in and probably going to pick up her flippers as well. But the real question here is now, how long is it going to be before either of our runners either check those first two items in Blue Brinstar or decide to run Aghanim? I don't think we're there yet, but it's definitely possible. And Iris having made this check a little bit later than zentrigger with the plasma beam and the wave beam, just going to absolutely shred these enemies and potentially make up some time that way. Now what Iris is trying to do here, and what we saw zentrigger do earlier, this is called a delayed wall jump. So when you interact with a wall in Super Metroid during a spin jump, Samus's sprite changes to indicate that you can perform a wall jump. Now there's 8 frames of time in which you can perform that jump, and usually players will get used to performing it on an early frame, but in some cases, like making that particular jump, performing the second jump press later on in the performing a later wall jump gives you just enough distance to be able to clear that gap.
And so, we'll see Agina's cave what Iris made 10 arrows.
Yep, and the other thing that we haven't talked about in a while is both of our players have had enough money to pay for Zora for quite some time now, and especially now having the flippers, there's really no reason for them not to check that.
Good point.
So there's 4 items available up there. So that's going to be hopefully pretty rewarding to whoever checks it first. They can either go the traditional route using the glove, or they could use a warping space in the in the sea near south. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, we prepared the magic whirlpool to so I think it would be better to use the flippers way, cause you can check the waterfall cave and route King Zora at the same time. So you'll get 3 items in the same routing.
Our players could also opt to go through Dark World like we talked about a little bit earlier, and routing Catfish and Pyramid along with it and add 2 more items to that total as well.
Or they could also wait until way later to get the red bomb, to also get Pyramid Fairy to add +1 item. And zentrigger with his Master Sword in hand, what will it do?
And now Iris, through with their checks in Norfair, gonna go ahead and head back to A Link to the Past. Zentrigger gonna check out Old Man Under the Bridge here. And we did get a glimpse of what was on the island this time a little bit more clearly. Just 50 rupees, not something they're gonna go out of their way.
While Iris was there, I think why she didn't go to a Kraid yet?
No Morph Ball, can't get there yet. And also would have found that the Spazer check is impossible without Morph Ball, and getting past the X-Ray heading up Red Brinstar would not be possible either without the Morph Ball and Power Bombs. So really just stuck with nowhere to go there. And Zentrigger now making the play, and it looks like Iris right behind them heading up to King Zora. The only real check we have left, short of checking early Brinstar and Aghanim.
A bug net.
Yeah, gosh, I'm trying to think of what else our players could really get here. Maybe Bombos would give them Ice Palace access, just the left half of it. But that's really about it.
Oh, Zentrigger going for a startup of Metroid, Super Metroid. Hopefully checking criteria.
And our tracker, Wesker, pointing out that Catfish is also available, as well as the Pyramid. But given the route that they took, that's going to be a little bit out of the way now.
You know, while I was passing for old Mother Brain spot, they could use Power Bomb since they have those.
Still no Morph Ball, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about it.
It is possible with Screw Attack, but unfortunately they don't have that either. And Zentrigger now going to be checking the ceiling here, but this, I guess this could have Morph Bomb. Oh, the hand.
With progression.
Yep, so that item was absolutely in logic since they found the high jump boots earlier, but both of our runners could have saved themselves a lot of trouble by finding that earlier and using the enemy damage boost to get that at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I was going to mention damage boost while you were mentioning high jump boost.
And now with the hammer in hand, some significant Link to the Past area is now going to be open to Zentrigger. Not only can they do parts of Palace of Darkness, but I think the real play here is doing East Death Mountain and possibly Dark Death Mountain as well, and picking up a bevy of items.
I would say all of Palace of Darkness is available now since they got the hammer.
Yep, everything except clearing Helmasaur is available to them. They'll need a bow for that.
Yeah. But clearly, we have so many more locations now with the hammer.
And Wesker pointing out that not having a bottle as well is going to make Palace of Darkness a risky play, because if the first chest that they check is not a key, then most of the rest of Palace of Darkness will be locked. So Iris going to check out Pyramid here and then possibly dip Palace of Darkness, depending on how this goes. But zentrigger looking like they have found the way forward here by heading to Death Mountain.
Just 20 rupees. And since we got the Titansmith and the hammer, we can check the medallion requirement for Total Rock.
And unfortunately, Iris getting sucked into even more checks that are going to put her off from finding the hammer. And the longer that she goes without checking that Brinstar location, the further zentrigger is going to be able to extend their lead.
We didn't saw that first chest, but we saw the second one. And I think he's the first one in Paradox Cave, right?
Yep. This particular cave called Paradox Cave because the levels of the interior do not match the elevations of the exterior. And so far, not really looking like anything here in Light Death Mountain. Zentrigger setting up a bomb jump here, and unfortunately taking a step too far to the side. Oh, and unfortunately Iris finds a key here, and that's going to open up some more of Palace of Darkness for them. So unless they find some other kind of progression that leads them back to Super Metroid, that's going to further put off the check to find them. That's really unfortunate RNG for Iris.
I would say it could also be nearer to the boat if it's in there. Point to
Yeah, bow might be the best possible thing for Iris to find, because it would be just enough information to keep them going and to complete some of their checks without.
And now we gotta go fast.
Yep, Zentrigger picking up the Pegasus boots in Dark in the Super Bunny Cave. That's what it's.
Super Bunny Cave, while Iris with a Quake medallion.
Zentrigger wisely checking the hookshot cave here. That first chest is accessible by bonking, and getting some information on Turtle Rock here in that it is going to be Bombos required. Dan Sydney, we unfortunately don't have a magical fire source, which would either be the Fire Rod or Bombos Medallion. Otherwise, they can't get past the first room in the Ice Palace. And looking like the first chest in Paradox Cave was Bombo.
Yeah, seems like it. Is he going to dip it? That's O's going in.
Yep, I think they've got enough here to check just one chest, and if it has a key in it, potentially more. But if there's no key in this chest, unfortunately the fire rod is going to be required to go further.
We got a key. But I would say it is a wise choice to beta.
So now it looks like Zentrigger is going to head to Spike Cave, or
finishing Hera.
But Spike Cave should be in logic for Zentrigger here, given that they have the hammer as well as the blue cane.
Would think not really, since maybe they don't have more hearts. I may be wrong, but I'll be is dating on that being in logic with their heart number.
Yeah, I think that even without half magic, that just having the blue cane and the hammer puts Spike Cave in logic. Without an invincibility item, I think it's 8 to 10.
If they add a battle, I would say it's totally in logic. But they don't have one.
Oh right, also the bottle, I had forgotten.
And then trigger using the hammer, which is causing temper sword slash damage, will take Moldorm easily.
I believe you're right, Thalphon, in that the cape does drain energy faster, but if you have a full bar of it and even only 3 hearts, I think you can still get to it. And the logic, as far as I know, only requires you to be able to go one way rather than both ways in and out of the cave, because once you find an item in A Link to the Past, it doesn't go away, unlike Super Metroid.
Yeah, it's just one way, cause you can save and quit to get out.
And Iris now making the correct call to go and find the hammer down in Blue Brinstar. Gonna get them back on track. And speaking of Spike Cave, Zentrigger's gonna show us what. So there are actually 2 other checks zentrigger can make now, given that they found the boots, including Bonk Rocks and King's Tomb. Both are really close to Sanctuary, so I would not be surprised to see zentrigger save and quit 2 there this time.
Just like you said, he does that. And Iris finally getting her hammer.
And I'm a little surprised zentrigger didn't go for King's Tomb there. I hope that doesn't come back to bite them. Could eventually be a chance for Iris to catch up, but they'll need to do Death Mountain first.
Yeah, she needs to do Super Barnicade. And I'm also surprised that zentrigger didn't do that. But you know, with a hammer, Big Cave, and is going to hammer dash. It can item dash with the boots and holding the item button at the same time.
And zentrigger gratefully gonna gobble up that extra heart there. And since zentrigger has not done Catfish or Graveyard Ledge or any of that, probably going to loop that all in with the King's Tomb check. So they don't know quite as much about it as we do here, but potentially some good loot to be found here at the the King's Tomb, and then potentially further into Palace of Darkness after that.
Maybe he's just rotting Graveyard Ledge with King's Tomb, and then rotting Catfish. That would be good rotting.
I wholeheartedly agree. And unfortunately, just Super is there.
I would gladly take those supers, cause they don't have Charge Beam, so they need a lot to do Mother Brain.
And Iris looking like they were about to go deeper into Thieves Town there, potentially having 1 item left to check now that she has the hammer, but deciding to do hammer pegs first.
Or maybe you should just remember our item count in Thieves Town.
Iris now looking at their items and saying, With Flippers and Mirror, perhaps the seed is trying to direct me to Swamp Palace. So gonna go ahead and give that a look. And a lot of players like to put off Swamp Palace. It's just not a very friendly or fast dungeon, unfortunately, but it can have several items.
Several items, yeah, but it could be since it's required, it can be a gamble if you don't find the hook shot in it.
Yep, so it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 chests available without the hook shot, and several of those will be keys or dungeon items, other things that Iris isn't hoping to find here. This first item, for example, will always be a key, so that you can get directly into this locked door. So that one kind of automatically discounted there. But this next chest coming up could potentially hold an item.
And most of the keys you find are under pots or need a hook shot. So you really want to have the hook shot in Swamp Palace.
Yep, I definitely think zentrigger did the right thing with their hammer by checking Paradox Cave and Death Mountain right away. But Iris, perhaps feeling a little bit behind, is trying to make an unusual play and hoping for a big break.
You know, sometimes unusual, outside of the box thinking can be really good, just as in the box thinking can be good too. But we're not in their heads, so we can't know what they are thinking.
Iris heading into the left side of Swamp Dungeon, and this is a perfect example of what my co-commentator LJM was talking about, that sometimes it's less optimal to check things at certain times. So Iris is going to go ahead and check 2 more chests on the left side, and you can certainly get to both of them without the hook shot, but having the hook shot takes half the time to do it, just because of the nature of elevation changes and pits that they're going to have to drop into. This is going to eat up quite a bit of time.
Zentrigger with his Quake Medallion, but while talking about time, when a proverb which says haste can make waste. If you're too fast or skip too many things, you're going to waste time. So being thorough can be good.
Zentrigger finding the big key here, gonna go ahead and check the Dark Maze area of Palace of Darkness. Not a check that I think that Iris made while they were...
Iris did check that.
Oh, okay. So then we know that there's not too much else for Zentrigger to find, unfortunately. And there we go. Iris picks up the space jump on a gamble. Could potentially pay off huge.
You know, only Morph Ball left and you can get to Meridia.
Yep, so with the Morph Ball here, the Iris and the space jump, Iris would be able to check pretty much all but about 6 or 7 items in Super Metroid. But really, the Morph Ball holding back about 80 items here.
The seed opener for this seed will be the Morph Ball. Whoever gets the Morph Ball first will certainly be in the lead.
Iris heading back to Agina's cave, which we know is not going to find them too much, and now Zentrigger also looking at Swamp Palace, so this advantage for Iris unfortunately going to be
Short-lived, sadly.
And Zentrigger showing off that you can despawn pushable blocks in A Link to the Past by mashing the mirror button as you move. Iris being pretty unhappy with that Agina check, gonna go ahead and drop a bomb in that chest for the next person.
I know we don't have the Morph Ball, but which area of Kraid can we access without the Morph Ball?
None, unfortunately. Iris is going to climb up here and realize that they either need the Morph Ball to check Spazer, or the Morph Ball in order to use Power Bombs to get up through here. Actually, I think they may be able to open it just with a regular beam, but still, not going to be able to find a whole lot. So I think the only real ways we have to go here are up the rest of Red Tower, heading to the rest of Red Brinstar, which will not be checkable because both of them require power bombs to get to the items, and that will take them up to the first area of Wrecked Ship, which also can't be opened. It's a power bomb door, so this is a pretty fruitless exercise for Iris, unfortunately. Wesker, you need a power bomb for the floor there, despite that super missile door. Oh, right, this one.
Artes. You know, maybe we can go to Pink Brainstar. That could be a place we didn't check.
Unfortunately, you need power bombs to get there, or some other way of destroying bombable, like the screw attack.
So many things are blocked by bombs or...
Yep, there's unfortunately really nothing else here for Iris to do but to head back to A Link to the Past. And I think, fortunately, here Iris is probably going to say to themselves, I have Quake, maybe it's worth checking out Turtle Rock and Death Mountain and hopefully putting her on the path to finding their Bombos medallion and checking out Turtle Rock. Other than that, I'm not really sure how much of the game we have left that can really be checked without either checking the mushroom or I guess they have partial Ice Palace check now with Bombos.
You can do all of Ice Palace with Bombos. You just need A lot of magic.
And without having found a bomb, that's going to make it quite difficult. And I think only the left half is in logic, because the logic of A Link to the Past does not require you to be able to do bomb jumps. So they could absolutely full clear it, and that might not be a bad idea to full clear that, despite it not being fully in logic, to try and get a leg up.
With the King of Samaria, I would say Ice Palace is totally in logic, since depending on key logic and such, we can know if Ice Palace is intended with King or without King, and that can lead us to more logic and what it wants us to do.
You could be right. I know that the hookshot room you can't get across unless you bomb jump or have the hookshot, and so I don't know if you need to do that room in order to full clear it or not. I think it blocks at least a chest or two.
I'll say on the landing site of Zebes in Super Metroid, the door which is top right, where you need normally space jump or a well-timed shine spark. What is the requirement of that door, which I don't know very well?
Oh, it's a power bomb door, unfortunately.
And I would just confirm that the first chest of Paradox Cave is Bumbo's, with Iris getting her Bumbo's medallion.
So, unfortunately, with the seed being so constrained and not giving Zentrigger anything for all of his work, really all of that advantage that he has, that he had built up by getting the hammer, is now pretty much evaporated as Iris heads towards Turtle.
Yeah, I would say with this much of a drought on Zentrigger's side, Iris did catch up by a lot. Now, we'll see if that chest is really worth it or not. No, bust.
Dan Sydney, it is possible, I believe, for the morph ball to be on the pedestal, but they would need to find the fire rod as well as the ice rod to make that possible. And it's not looking likely at this point.
Yeah, not likely. Like my commentator said, we need for pet seed, we need ice rod, fire rod, and that's about it. And that is the thing left remaining that we need.
Zentrigger getting a nice clean sword kill here on
Blind.
Blind. Yep. And Blind's kind of an interesting fight, and we learned a lot about Blind through the randomizer. It turns out that it doesn't matter what you hit Blind with, he always takes 9 hits to kill. So even just the fighter sword is the same as using the gold sword or the hammer or the cane or anything else. So that challenge not hugely daunting for Zentrigger, despite having a weaker weapon, whereas Iris, the great challenge, was only having 4 hearts there, making it a little bit more dangerous.
Iris, I would say, Iris is planning on going to. Iris, I think, and we are in V30, which in the combo randomizer, it's not the case yet. We're mostly hoping maybe Turtle will make it happen. But Iris with Ice Palace playing.
Yep, this could potentially pay off very big for Iris if this is where our next progression item is located.
And Bumbo's medallion being the best medallion because it kills enemies, but not all enemies can kill with Bumbo.
Now, Zentrigger there did a hard reset, and performing a hard reset, no matter what game you're in, places you at the ship in Super Metroid. So after finding out that Red Brinstar check was not worth anything, deciding to reset so that they can get back to A Link to the Past a little bit faster. Iris here in Ice Palace is going to be lining up for a bomb jump, and these are kind of tricky.
In for speedrunning the game, it's one the bomb jump you need to learn if you ever hope to be high in the leaderboard.
And Zentrigger saying he's had enough, going to Aghanim.
Yeah, you just saw what you see what I see.
Now this is about a 4.5 minute dungeon if you're pretty proficient at it, and I have to say, as a randomizer player myself, it is not a quick dungeon for me, given how infrequently I do it. But hopefully Zentrigger going to get through it pretty quickly here, and pick up that mushroom and see what that's worth, and really banking on the fact that that could hold some sort of treasure to give them an advantage. So this will really be the telling thing. Will Mushroom have something? Will Ice Palace play out? Or is it going to be neither and going to be at Turtle Rock? Hang in there and see.
It can be really Turtle Rock, cause yeah, we got a key, but
yeah, it boggles my mind that he got that key and decided not to pursue.
Yeah, that key can be really trolling. Cause that key can lead to the progression. Now we got all the dungeon items in Ice Palace. What is left is key and item.
And did Iris check the big chest there?
No, he didn't. She didn't check the big chest.
Oh no, she was right in the room too, and is instead looking at a bomb jump they can't do.
What other hookshot she need to make a bomb jump if she want to reach the other side? Oh, oh, found something interesting. Who found the bow in Ice-T room?
And that's a great find for Iris, gonna open up the rest of Eastern as well as Pod, both crystal dungeons. Gonna be, even if that's not the thing that's gonna lead to the next progression item, that's 2 extra dungeons that she's gonna be able to get ahead. And it's really not looking good for the Aghanim play, unfortunately. But we won't know until
mushroom.
Until we cash in the mushroom. And Iris still not checking that big chest. I do believe it's probably just a regular key. But still, that regular key would have gotten Iris into the side room there and potentially provided them with some additional magic. Iris has got a really tough fight here with only half a heart rate.
Yeah, maybe the big chest was a small key, which would mean that Ice Palace is doable without the king. But zentrigger did trigger when fighting Aghanim if E7 quit in the Dark World, since you have the Moon Pearl, the Mirror, and then beat Aga1. If E7 quit in the Dark World, it will respawn on the pyramid.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Iris going to be taking that death. Was doing really, really well, but just not quite paying. So now that zentrigger has killed Aghanim, that tree's leaves colors change, and you can get to Lumberjack Cave successfully. So zentrigger heading directly to turn in the mushroom here, and there is a way to get your mushroom back here, and you would have to do a hard reset in order to get it. Usually doing fake powder a better play first. Yep, and zentrigger just getting a super missile pack for that. Gonna be furious at having to waste all that time on Aghanim, and gonna have to really search his remaining options to get back. And looking like potentially the Turtle Rock play.
Yeah, I will think. Since he doesn't have a bow, can do anything else, really.
And zentrigger scratching their head here, trying to figure out what to do next. What else is left to do? Go to Ice Palace, buddy. Yeah, Iris skipped the bomb jump this time, trying to conserve a little bit of health on the way to Cold Stare here, and using Cane strats and And I'm really hoping, gonna check the big chest this time, probably pick up a key, and some additional magic and health before Cold. Oh, it was an item.
An item, just a missile pack. So in fact, Ice Palace needed the Ganon of Samaria to finish.
Yep, and Iris going to abandon ship here, say, to hell with that, gonna see what this bow does, and come back to Ice Palace later. Now here I would have liked to have seen Iris head into the Dark World and do Palace of Darkness first, and then just mirror and do Eastern for a slightly more optimal.
I think she's gonna do that.
You're exactly
and
right.
doing one of the dream of the random.
Yep, Iris totally trolling me there, and remembering this warp zone.
Still, no Morph Ball, no Speed Booster, no Fire Rod, no Screw Attack, no Hook Shot, no Book, no Flute, no Charge, no Ice. This is rough.
Yeah, this is absolutely not a beginner-friendly seed, unfortunately. And zentrigger now making the correct call. So we've had a dramatic change in pacing here, and as soon as Iris found that bow, and as soon as the Aghanim play did not pan out, Iris gonna take the lead here.
I would say as I'm account for Super Metroid, since they don't have George Beam yet, in Super Metroid, for killing Mother Brain, I would say zentrigger has a lead, but for A Link to the Past, Iris would be in the lead. You saw that, right?
Iris getting some rage slashes in there, finding the morph ball in Palace of Darkness. What a
Troll.
This seed is such a meme.
You can see, this seed is beginner friendly, Kappa.
And Iris having a little bit of fun chucking that Samaria block around a little bit to get some of that frustration out. But fortunately, now having the bow in hand as well as silvers early on, really going to trivialize a lot of the bosses, which you'll absolutely see here. The only bosses in the game that are not immune to silver arrows, there are only 2 of them that take more than 1 hit to kill, and those are Vitreous and Ganon. Zentrigger getting a nice bomb jump. Iris continuing to clear out Pod, a couple of rooms away, 1 room away to be precise, from Helmus.
And to get the mask off, I think it's 10 or 15 armor strike to take off the mask. And
17.
with silver, 17. Close enough to get, and 1 silver arrow to beat Elma.
Yep. And you probably noticed that Iris was charging a sword slash there, or rather a spin. And what that does is, and this is a little known fact about how this kind of stuff works, if you are holding down that charge and you hit Helmusar with the hammer, instead of being deflected and turning Link away from Helmusar, holding that charge keeps you facing Helmusar and can potentially help you remove its mask a little bit faster.
Yeah, or more, let's say, simply put, locks you in position. Like in other game, they say like lock in, like for combat. Like I know Metroid Prime does that.
And really, the best thing we can hope for Zentrigger here is hoping that he's going to be able to clear Cold Stare in addition to finishing, in addition to finding the. That's going to be possibly the one silver lining that may save him a little bit of time against Iris.
Yeah, he needs to go to the iced tea room.
Oh no, he's heading to Cold Stare already. He may miss the bow entirely.
He's thinking.
And this
Feels
could be
bad, man.
Yep, this could be devastating for Zentrigger if he does not go back to check Ice Tea.
And Iris trivializing almost night.
Potentially, zentrigger could still get an item here, but whether it won't be progression. I can't remember how many items they've gotten in the Ice Palace.
I know there may be 4 items total in Ice Palace.
Yep,
And he
and
is doing great with his pin attacks.
let's see here. So Iris, after clearing out Eastern, gonna head right back into Super Metroid, and finally, we're gonna get to see more than 6 checks in this game. And zentrigger just getting a key off of Cold Stare there, hopefully gonna direct him back to finish up the rest of Ice Palace. And he's going back.
There's still hope. And at the top left of the lemon side, you only get a heart container. Let's see if Gauntlet has something. Our first battle.
Yep. So our first bottle at an hour and 40 minutes in. That's not something you see too often.
Now we can get that sick gift check.
Yep. Iris lining up their jump here very carefully, going down in the middle of those crumble blocks ensures that you can get both. And speed booster at Terminator. How's that for ironic?
Now she's gotta go fast in both games.
I'm actually not sure that Iris picked up Pegasus boots yet.
I think she got him.
Probably.
Probably.
Iris going to be heading down to Green Brinstar here, and unfortunately with the finding of that speed booster, we may not get to see the Mach Ball this. Oh, they aimed down, certainly thought about it.
Oh, you know what? We need more. If she doesn't have more power bomb left, she would be soft lock. And a Mach Ball.
Yeah, Iris showing off the very cool Mach Ball here.
And the book.
Yep. Gonna pick up that book and showing us how you can certainly get to this room without the speed booster, but unfortunately the Morph Ball was...
Yeah. Maybe she's still trolling you like, oh, maybe we won't see Mach Ball. She does Mach Ball.
Yep. And Iris now seeing something that they probably don't want to see, which is not finding any progression immediately in Super Metroid, but rather finding some more breadcrumbs for A Link to the Past. Now there is the potential for a really cool Mach Ball coming up that is a little bit tricky. So you generally need a lot of space to run and to jump in order to do a proper Mach Ball. but it's possible to do up here in this Edicoon's room, and we'll see if Iris takes a whack at it.
And here we're learning the vanilla wall jump. And Zentrigger getting his bow. Finally.
And Iris attempting this mock ball here and eventually getting it, getting kind of a wonky one there. The way that most people do that is jumping and releasing the jump button to lower the height of your jump there, so that you can mock ball out. But it looks like Iris was able to do almost a full jump there and maintain their momentum.
We're nearing the vanilla charge beam spot.
And Iris trying to get through that crumble block quickly, unfortunately not getting it. This particular room is called Mission Impossible because with the high jump boots, it's possible to quick crumble through there, pick up the item, and use your high jump boots to get out of there, back up the way.
We saw bottle number 2.
Iris gonna skip that for now. It remains to see whether she'll pick that up on her way back or.
I hope she did. I hope she will.
Yeah, it's certainly free insurance. There's almost no reason not to pick that.
With a fairy in it, that's really good.
And Iris gonna take a whack at the spore spawn skip here. So this is pretty neat. So they opened up the bombable region there, and then you scroll the screen a certain distance and fire off a super missile, and it spawns the super missile block in just the right position that you can hit it, so that you don't have to go through spore spawn. And looking like Zentrigger's short a key here, unfortunately. Gonna have to go back and fetch another one. But at least getting that information about the morph ball and gonna be able to start catching up to Iris.
Yeah, and now we'll see. Pink reserve plus 10. Oh, half magic. That's good.
And Zentrigger picking up that morph ball. Looks like must have come around through the other way. But now very unhappy to see the morph ball there, giving it a couple rage slashes for his trouble.
Third bottle. Let me guess, all the bottle will be in Super Metroid.
Iris coming up on Billy May's room here, so named because order now and we'll double your offer. Gonna get 2 items for the price of.
and eating, always useful and a piece of art. Now it's not really interesting, the piece of art. Early game, that's good. But too late and mid game and late game, not really. So now that she got the Marvel, I think she should do the Super Metroid bosses.
Yep. With Space Jump and the Morph Ball now, Iris fully able to clear every boss in Super Metroid.
I know I'll be looking ahead of time, but how many super missiles we need for Mother Brains, since we don't have charge, and we need Ice Beam for the beam combo and charge beam.
Yeah, so it takes about 60 super missiles, I think, to get through Mother Brain. Of course, you could do it with 55 or even 50 if you have enough missiles on hand, which I think Iris does. Iris gonna check Bomb Terizo here, and given that it does not contain Morph Ball bombs, and she doesn't have them yet, it's not going to activate, making that a quick and easy. Iris gonna try an Alcatraz here. Nicely done. Made a little bit easier with Space Jump.
Oh, I just thought, since she has speed booster, she can go straight to Wreck Ship at her right, and also Space Jump.
Oh, and looking like Iris gonna head down. I really don't agree with this particular routing. It would be much better to get Wreck Ship right out of the way here, because it's kind of all by itself, and you don't really want to have to come back for that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sinus. I would say like only near X-ray and its surrounding for that compared to Wreck Ship, not the best.
And unfortunately, that check that Iris performed earlier, just producing a duplicate piece of heart, nothing desirable about it.
You know what? Maybe Iris is going for X-ray and Spacer since she has Morph Ball.
Just rupees at X-ray.
You know what? Maybe she will route Kraid and Spacer at the same time.
That's definitely a sound play. And really, the only difference between our runners right now is Green Brinstar. That's pretty. Everything else is pretty much equal at this point.
Oh, Ice Beam.
Yep, Iris definitely doing a double take there, and definitely want to pick that up. That's going to make a much faster terrain much later.
Will she get the quick kill on Kraid? Also, Sinus, can you explain it?
Certainly. So, looking like... What's Iris gonna do here? Gonna try and activate Kraid's as quickly as possible. Oh, going for a missile strat here. So unfortunately she missed it, but what you're trying to do is to shoot one missile near Kraid's eyes to get him to open his mouth, and the second one almost exactly 10 frames later, which is about as fast as you can shoot two missiles from each other. And what will happen is there are several different sprites for Kraid's mouth opening. I think there's about 4 of them, and it can't be the very first one in which it's open. It has to be the second one after it's open. And if you hit Kraid with a missile or a super missile or anything else that damages him, his mouth will get stuck, and it will allow you to do an additional jump and get a couple extra super missiles in. And doing that, you can kill him before he has an opportunity to rise.
And killing Kraid yields nothing. But will other space, I don't know the name, will yield 10 arrows. Kraid is a bust.
Iris gonna take a trip down to Upper Norfair here, and these items have been in Logic, well, ever since they got the Morph Ball now, but having had the Varia for so long, these are gonna be very much...
So she's going to go do to get the Ice Beam location, and correct me if I'm wrong, Crocmire is in upper or lower Norfair? Since we
He's
didn't
in
add,
yeah, he's in
since we
upper Norfair.
is okay. Sorry for cutting, but we didn't add, did those check. That is why I'm mentioning that.
Yep. So with the speed booster, actually, Iris has the potential to route directly to Croc here right after this check. We'll see if she decides to do that or tries to go for a couple other items before hitting Crocomire. And she's going to go for the Crocomire. Now, unfortunately, Iris is missing the charge beam here, but having charged plasma would allow you to kill Crocomire in just one.
And in one hit.
Yep.
Like
Plasma beam hits on every single frame that it's contacting something, which is pretty crazy, and it does enormous amounts of damage. And Crocomire does not have any invulnerability frames at all. He's just always vulnerable. So hitting him with a plasma shot is almost doing infinite damage to him.
and also so with the properties of plasma beam, if you got X-ray for Dragon, we can microwave him for fried shrimp. Since with plasma eating at, like my commentator said, it eating at every frame, while activating X-ray, you get one frame. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Get one frame, stop, do an X-ray, normal deactivate X-ray, and plasma still in effect, still doing damage, and repeat, and Dragon should be dead. Iris is adding for lower Norfair, right? Oh, yeah, and doing no lava dive, but gravity.
Yep, definitely gravity varia and space jump. Definitely the vanilla way to get to Lower Norfair. And interestingly, something that you may not know about this particular thing that's happening on Iris's screen is that this Chozo will only activate and lower the lava and remove the plug if you have space jump. So this item is effectively the only thing truly locked by space jump. So Iris going to take the time to check it and make sure it's not something important.
The
And it
flute.
was important, the flute.
And that leads to golden chorizo, right?
Yep, that's the one. Iris dropping a clean power bomb there to also check the item. And this is going to be a tough fight. Iris only has 24 super missiles. Golden Chorizo takes at least 20, I believe, and he catches them as well. Iris taking a strat here where you try to get underneath Golden Chorizo and shoot missiles directly upwards into him. Now, she's unfortunately in the optimum position for shooting charged plasma shots, but really you want to be standing up next to Golden Chorizo whenever you're using super missiles. So that they arrive a little bit quicker and he'll catch a little bit fewer of them. So unfortunately, Iris gonna have to farm lots of these orange spheres for super missiles.
And he's down.
Yep. So Iris gonna get to check this item, and then the door right above it leads to Misery Mire. So that is probably gonna be worth taking the time to check those couple items real quick, and she does. Meanwhile, zentrigger heading over to Wreck Ship, showing us two areas we have not seen yet, and zentrigger doing a really neat strategy there that's really only available with the space jump, and checking that last item in the upper area of Wreck.
And Iris with Checkerboard Cave is going to find 5 rupees.
And it's also very possible for Iris to check the Mire Shed here. There's 2 more items, as well as doing the Desert Palace. She may be in a good position. Even though she picked up the book, it may be convenient to finish this now. Having the boots and the cane, if she can get into Mire, she could also clear that. And it's looking like it's Quake, so she could definitely do both of those.
It is Quake. I'm sure of it. 100%.
And it looks like Iris is going to do just that, so some excellent routing decisions here. And giving them a little bit of a break from the sort of strenuous nature of Super Metroid, or more fast-paced anyway. Giving them, or at least it would be if it were me, giving them a little bit of time to think about their next move.
And also, chat, if you want zentrigger to have a good Phantoon, compliment Phantoon. If you do not, if you want a slow Phantoon, insult Phantoon.
Yep, and Phantoon's an interesting fight here. So hitting Phantoon with super missiles, something that folks may be familiar with the vanilla sort of strategies against Phantoon. He will enrage and will shoot waves of blue fire at you and take a really long time to finish. Meanwhile, Iris finding the cape in Desert Palace. But back to Phantoon, zentrigger is using regular missiles instead, which will not enrage Phantoon, and trying to get into a position to do something called Dopplering Phantoon, which is a technique in which you compress lots of missiles together by walking and shooting them, and in that way you can get more than 6 missiles on Phantoon per phase, but having a little bit of trouble with it so far.
By enraging Phantoon, you mean is like at the top screen, on the top center of the screen where it shoots like circle of blue flame?
Yeah, that's right. And I think this is going to be the last phase of Phantoon for zentrigger here. Yep, and finishing it with a super missile just to be sure.
And strangely, Phantoon is the only boss that sounds like an elephant. I don't know why. Oh, and Iris not getting the first round Lemmolas with Silver Zero, since she doesn't have Fire Rod, which is another, or Ice Rod, which are both good alternative, needs two shots of those rods to kill Lemmolas or one Silver Arrow.
Yep, and that is not an easy strategy either. Arrows are quite difficult to time. Some of our better A Link to the Past runners are very proficient at it, but getting it on the second try there is definitely an admirable effort by.
The Fire Rod strat they only use that. And there's a third bottle. All bottle in Super Metroid. The Fire Rod strat is easier, way easier than Silver Arrow.
And zentrigger taking an unusual save here, and this is deliberate. So this door that's right beneath the one that he saved at leads to Sponge Bath and the one of the rear energy tanks as a part of Wreck Ship, and it's much faster to check this single item and then reset if it turns out to not be important.
Me, I will take it, since no charge beam for Super Missile. And nothing so far is in Misery Mire. Save the lots of keys.
Yeah, Misery Mire key logic is pretty complicated. Usually, you have to find a key early on, or a couple of them, and so it's entirely possible that you won't be able to get much of anything done for the first 4 chests in Mire.
With on charge, that's amazing.
And that's really going to pay out well for Iris. Picking up, doing this Misery Mire play was definitely an excellent choice. Meanwhile, zentrigger, working through the attic of Wreck Ship, had a really nice speed booster Shine Spark there to try and clear out some of the.
So now Iris, if I remember correctly, has the full beam combo, so she doesn't need all that super missile.
Yep. And zentrigger gonna go ahead and pick up the spring ball here. Which is a relatively valuable item in Super Metroid. Not necessarily with the current item counts and everything that they have, but could still prove useful and help them save a few power bombs and make crystal flashing an option. Meanwhile, Iris taking care of the torches here in Misery Mire and having to do them the long way. The quick way of doing this is using the fire rod, and as you push these blocks using the fire rod to light the torches, unfortunately fire rod not being available yet, gonna make it a little bit more of an arduous check.
Yeah, since when you push a block, the block doesn't have a, let's say, a value, so your fire rod shot pass through them. And also with spring balls, you know what it could means? We all want that Shack tool.
We don't even talk about Shack Tool when I'm commentating. Shack Tool is Snack Tool. It's no good. And quite frankly, this seed has been cruel enough to the runners without Shack Tool.
What is worse, Ped Seed or Shack Tool? I don't know. I don't know Super Metroid enough to know the pain of Shack Tool.
Shack Tool is a faster check, but it is by far the worst check in Super Metroid. And it kind of depends on how many of the dungeons have items in them and so on. But generally speaking, a Ped Seed is worse than Shack Tool. But Shack Tool is just so far out of the way, it's always my last check of the game.
I presume zentrigger is thinking, because we don't see him moving. Or maybe
yeah, so during the bowling alley, that's using the game kind of runs on its own a little bit. So zentrigger probably took a quick bathroom break.
like the break in tire rooms or Hera.
Yep, you can also get one at Mother Brain, but that's kind of at the end of the game anyway. And Iris just barely getting the 1 or 0 Cyclone Vitriol.
For a reserve tank.
And unfortunately, Wreckship really only holding Spring Ball for zentrigger, so this is going to work out a little bit better for Iris if they don't have to make as many checks when coming back through Wreckship.
Yeah, but it saved the fact of maybe not using power bomb. But I think Iris is near the worst room in the games, maybe?
Yep, that one is definitely coming up. So let's see here. Are they going to need Fire Rod to finish this seed? Potentially not.
Maybe, but they definitely need Hookshot.
Yes, absolutely. 100% going to need Hookshot to finish up Swamp Palace here. But it could also be more than that. It could be if they have to go the whole way through Turtle Rock for any reason, they could be required to get Ice Rod as well.
Ice Rod and Fire Rod.
Yep. But ether, I can say with conviction, is not required in this seed. And Iris gonna check Mickey Mouse room here. Gonna have to be a little bit careful when you use a power bomb here. Most of this is crumble blocks, so gonna have to be a little bit careful coming back. Get your spin jump, Iris. There it is, and gets through.
Also, if something is on Sashrala, you need a fire rod to beat Skullwood for another thing that requires fire rod.
Yep, that's another good point. But if you need something out of Skullwoods, I guess you kind of need Fire Rod then. Iris gonna forego the save before Ridley here. I'm not sure that is the wisest choice. She did pick up Charge Beam, which is going to guarantee that she does not necessarily have to farm that much, but Ridley is no slouch here. He's, the game expects you to come with everything that Iris already has here, so could still potentially be a big stumbling block if she's not careful.
We know Ridley as one of the most famous bosses for Metroid. Maybe even more than Mother Brain. Iris not going for the Shine Spark strat on the golden part.
And zentrigger continuing to retrace some of Iris's steps here. We'll have to see where he goes after Kraid, whether he decides to pursue Meridia or do what Iris did and check out some of Norfair, including Lower North.
Now, zentrigger with this Ice Beam.
And Iris finding some nice comfy spots to do damage onto Ridley from during those pogo bounces. But now Ridley is low on health. His speed's going to increase and make him a little bit more difficult to finish off here. But Iris doesn't have.
Oh, that was a hook shot.
Oh my. Oh my. Ridley hiding gold this time. And unfortunately, zentrigger getting a little bit closer to the Kraid quick kill, but gonna have to take Kraid to the prop.
So, she can finish Swamp and finish Ice Palace, but I think she will be like it won't be safe if she finish A Link to the Past.
It's certainly a gamble, and it might be one worth taking here. She's going to be coming up on easy access, potentially back to Misery Mire, although she also has the flute now as well. So, almost no matter how she plays it, I think that finishing up as many A Link to the Past dungeons as possible and taking a look in GT is a valid idea here, because if you don't need the fire rod, then you are saving yourself a lot of time and a lot of checks, because if she doesn't need the fire rod, she's essentially in go mode.
Yeah, but you know, spin attack of on Ganon is just long. You save like 5 minutes having tempered sword. And we see the item which we didn't want to see, the ice rod. And zentrigger with the X-ray.
And Serious Business brings up a good point that if they know how to do the bomb jump, which is fairly tricky in GT because it involves a conveyor belt, I believe, in addition to precise positioning with the bomb jump, you can actually continue on to the right side and get all but one of the checks. So that's also a potential thing, and Iris has demonstrated that they're fairly comfortable with some of the bomb jumps in A Link to the Past already, so I would not be terribly surprised if they would be able to make that play. It really depends on how Iris, or what Iris is thinking about as she looks at her tracker. Is she thinking the same way we are, that maybe the no fire rod gamble is the way to go? But it is so rare that fire rod is not required. I wonder if that's even going through her head.
For fire rod to not be required, you need at least you have to need no skull wound and no total rock. Like as of now, they're pendant. You need to not yield something to have a no fire rod needed seed. And also Ice Palace, but you can do that with bamboo.
And looking like Iris going to go ahead and take care of Meridia first, but potentially might bypass some of those long checks on her way through.
Looks like zentrigger is going for Ridley, and eventually their hookshot.
And it's looking like Iris is choosing to sort of go mode the Meridia here. Maybe just do a couple of checks on the way through. And this is good routing too, because this is going to put her, dump her out really close to Ice Palace and Swamp Palace with the with the transition to A Link to the Past in Meridia.
And she's doing well and she's taking care of bot wound really well.
Yep, still a little low on health here, given that Dragon's coming up and she doesn't have one of the really easy mode methods to get through it, and almost getting that halfie there, but missing one jump.
Sadly, she won't be able to microwave Dragon, which I would say it's a easy way.
And Iris making quick work of Dragon with that Ice Plasma wave combo.
Ooh, she's gambling up. She's gambling for Meridia Gomo. That can bite back.
Well, Raziel, it really depends on whether Fire Rod is required or not, and doing some really odd routing here. I would have expected her, since she go-moded Meridia, to just head right back to Dark World here, but instead choosing to head back down Meridia. Not sure what's going on here.
We're not in the head, so we don't know. But she's quite low on super missiles, which is not good.
So I guess what she may be doing is heading to the upper room here and heading to Criteria and Wreck Ship. And then she'll probably go mode Wreck Ship, which we know is a reasonably good choice at this point, which will put her Wreck Ship time at about 3 to 5 minutes or so.
But with that gamble, maybe she's failing behind. I don't know, maybe, but
Well, I think the seed has been kind of wonky, so given the location of the hammer and the fact that neither one of them checked Blue Brinstar there early, that they both probably felt a little bit behind when they found hammer, but unfortunately for Zentrigger, checking Ice Palace so late, probably felt very behind when they found the bow there.
and we all hope that Zentrigger will get his charge beam.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain Zentrigger is going to find the charge beam in here, given that he's still looking for the hook shot for sure.
And now, chat, you know what you can do? Influence Phantoon. And I'm going to influence it with good energy, like, we love you, Phantoon. We love you.
And that's Phantoon down for Iris. Gonna go ahead and probably make the Mother Brain play here, right after filling up at the ship.
And then now with this charge, and maybe Iris, I would say Iris would be in a good spot for finishing Super Metroid, then going into a link to the past to finish the rest.
Yep, and unfortunately Iris missing an opportunity to shine spark there and save a little bit of time. It's very rare that you get to go that direction through Wreck Ship in that conveyor belt room, so not surprised that it slipped. And oh wow, Iris must feel really behind that, or she's heading to back to A Link to the Past, and it looks like it's going to be the latter. But still, not a great reason not to fill up at the ship.
Yeah, I do agree with you on this one.
Now, it looks like Iris is going to be retreading some old ground, just has to go in and finish up Cold Stare, and meanwhile Zentrigger is going to finish up Misery Mire and then probably continue through Lower Norfair. So let me remind you that this tournament is being sponsored by Vi.gg, who's accepting bets on the various races. Definitely check them out. They have put up $400 for the top prize of this very tournament, and we'll continue to add to that if a certain number of bets are reached, including commissions. And then, so please definitely check them out. And then I want to take a moment to again recognize our runners as well as the help today. So our runners Zentrigger and Iris both doing a fantastic job with the hand that they've been dealt. Just a terrible seed, and doing the best they can with it, and certainly coming out the better for it. So if you like them, please check them out. I'm going to post links to their Twitch stream in the chat, and then I'd like to also thank the folks that are running things behind the scenes today. Speed Gaming for hosting this particular race. Wesker for doing a fantastic job on tracking. Hasn't even taken a bathroom break in 3 hours. So thank you very much, Wesker, for taking care of the tracking for us. And then Math Girl and our restreamer for getting everything set up and making sure things go smoothly. And then last but not least, my co-commentator LJM. And I'm Sinus bringing you today's race.
Yeah, thank you. I also thank you for your commentating and your Metroid knowledge that I may be lacking.
Your knowledge, you certainly know or see what's on the screen, and you know that something's going on. But yeah, definitely the finer points of Super Metroid, not easy to understand when you just see it on the screen, but when you explain it, it makes a lot of sense. But speaking of that knowledge, I will be running a race tomorrow morning at tomorrow, Thursday at 9 a.m., and I'm playing Lenofis. We do have a couple of very prominent runners coming up on the weekend. We had Solsky raced on Monday, which is one of the big favorites. Andy and Ivan are going to be racing each other this weekend, which is expected to be a great race. And then I think Elminster and Zost, and unfortunately Zost getting paired with Solsky in round one had a very tough round one. Their race is going to be coming up on Friday or this weekend as well. And then I guess I would be remiss if I also didn't mention Oats and Goats, who is a pretty frequent Super Metroid runner. Just really some unbelievable technique in Super Metroid. That one's also a real joy to watch.
Yeah, mostly most of my knowledge came from watching M. But I saw this kind of tournament, the co-op one, just before this one, and everything. And zentrigger just finding is flute.
Now, zentrigger has the opportunity to take a slightly different strategy from Iris here. Having the charge beam and the plasma beam, he's going to go ahead and get 2 hits every time he shoots a plasma beam upwards at Golden Torizo. Now, that really only works if you're kneeling underneath Gold Torizo. So you want to get underneath him and press both of your shoulder buttons to aim up in order to get that to work. See, we've got a couple other good games coming up. Gilgatex versus Karakarn is going to be tomorrow. They're both pretty good runners, and if you use some of the trackers for this game, you may recognize Gilgatex's name. They definitely put together one of the trackers. We've also got Commodore versus Total. Commodore is a pretty prominent name in the Discord and most of the other randomizer runs, but you may also recognize Total as the creator of this randomizer, so certainly they've got some awesome knowledge and skills to be able to compete at this game. NDS and Metroid MST will be playing Friday evening as well, and that will be a good race with talented players as well.
And on the same day that Camara and Tolo are racing, 4 hours later we got Oats and Goats and Evil Sparky.
Yeah, and Evil Sparky probably looking for an easy seed after what they had last week. A lot of pain in that seed. But any seed that's short is just going to be feeding that crazy Oats and Goats Super Metroid machine. So that one could go either way. And And Iris, having checked most of Swamp, is going to be able to go mode this, but even if they hadn't checked the left side of Swamp here, I would suspect that using the hook shot, she is simply going to gather the key from the big central room and head directly down. This being one of the only dungeons in which the big key is not required to get to the boss, so she won't need to look for that at all.
Also, Skullwood is one of the dungeons you don't need a big key, save for the big chest. If you're in vanilla, it's the fire rod.
And I think you can do ice without the big key as well, but there's a lot of chests that you skip by doing.
Yeah, you can do it without the big key, but you need to do the bomb jump.
And I think, in fact, in the latest version of the randomizer, the big key can actually be locked in the big chest in some of those dungeons that we just mentioned, which is kind of a wonky thing to think.
Only Swamp and Skullwood.
Oh, Thalfun making a good point that the big key for Ice Palace is required without bomb jumps, and so with the logic working the way it does for normal mode here, and for hard mode in fact, because they both use the same link to the past logic, the big key cannot be locked in the big chest for Ice Palace. Good catch, Thalfun.
And Iris on Argus, not using strat to switch to the aimer to one hit the puffs, which will be maybe slower or faster.
I have seen some players use the hookshot to grab two of them at once, so they'll grab one and move downwards a little bit and grab another one, and in that way save a little bit of time with the master. But Iris, not too worried about that here. Gonna try and fill Argus with a silver arrow to finish up, and does so nicely, getting the one shot. Meanwhile, Zentrigger fighting Ridley, he's got over 60 super missiles. He is going to have no ammo problems at all whatsoever, and going to go ahead and elect to kill Ridley with super missiles, which is a little bit faster and a little bit easier given how much Ridley moves around. And now it's really the moment of truth. Iris gonna head up to Ganon's tower, and we're gonna find out if this fire rod is required or not. The odds are certainly in her favor.
Are we doing the just guessing game, if available, for the big key in Ganon's tower?
Oh yeah, what is the command for that?
I know that.
Oh, you do? You gonna do it? Ah, nice,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
So go ahead and get your guesses in for the big key chest game, bearing in mind that a high guess may very well be locked out by a fire rod, even if it wins you the chest game here.
and we only count the moment Iris entered Ganon's tower. even if zentrigger enter it and finish it before its iris count we are looking at.
And looking like Iris gonna try and find a sword on their way up Ganon's tower here. Definitely can find a sword upgrade there, which would make her fight against Ganon a little bit easier. But fortunately, having the silver arrow is not going to be too bad. But I was really excited to hear from another player recently, and oh my, zentrigger getting pretty low on health here. Gonna have to be careful. That the hard mode of the Link to the Past randomizer that's coming up is there is actually like an expert mode that has the possibility of maxing out at the Master Sword and not getting anything else. So that was pretty intense.
What you're speaking of is expert and insane difficulty. So we are now 1, 2, any guessing game as that?
Oh, and it's Bob's Torch, number 3.
Number.
Congratulations, Halfon. You win the game. And Iris is going to go ahead and pick up an extra key here.
So the correct answer is 3, but we need its sub or further. So the official winner is Link Hero of Time 64.
Iris having a little bit of trouble with these mimics here. Not having, probably not too used to having the Master Sword. And doing a good job at gathering up the red mimics here and using those sword charging strats to keep themselves aimed without letting the mimics face them. Yep, so as we mentioned, yeah, the no fire rod required seed, which is very unlikely in my experience, coming true for Iris and putting them in full-fledged go mode. And looking like zentrigger was headed for a death, or possibly looking at an alternative route through Lower Norfair to try and get back to Link to the Past a little bit. And I do believe Iris has 2 fairies in a bottle in addition to a red potion to get them through Ganon's tower here. So not too worried about.
If she didn't use them, yes, she has 2 fairy and 1 red potion. Well, Iris' experience with Link to the Past is doing a good job for Gauntlet, but missed low on health.
Yep, and Iris gonna go ahead and say, the heck with this, I've got half magic, I'm just gonna bombos these rooms and get them done, rather than play around on the...
Bombo strat is excellent, but magic powder that fairy changed the cycle of the land mullet.
I didn't know that, that's wild.
Yes, that's like you could say a reason why some don't powder that fairy, because it's really more difficult to one cycle Lemolus 2 if you parted it, instead of leaving it as a bunny bean and as a regular Lemolus cycle.
And I really like this room, and unfortunately Iris not getting the Cane of Samaria block she needed there, getting 3 of them on the second try. That always looks really clean when you get it.
And we're coming to rooms where the fire rods is really good to add, because of this torch right here.
Yep. Well, the room above it is also pretty good too, and Iris going to elect a falling strat there and gets a nice line with the Pegasus boots and clears that very easily.
Normally with the fire rod you will let the bottom left, then right, other right, and then there's
Oh
a
my
fire
gosh. Wow. I can't believe it. So no matter how long zentrigger looks for the fire rod, he isn't going to find it until he gets to Ganon's tower.
Fire rods not required. That's rare.
Yep, somebody clip that. That one is one for the books.
Let's hope she changed for a hook shot. Maybe a hook shot at the end to save time for the manuing, since when you defeat a boss, and she did, if you defeat a boss like that, you can put your open your menu, so you lose time for the menu and you can do just that.
Yep. There's also a really nice pushing hookshot strategy there, and she gets it.
And don't use the mirror, cause you're in a dungeon. You were back at the beginning. And let's do geometry.
Iris getting a clean 2 hit here. Meanwhile, zentrigger going to be working on Phantoon, and he's got the X-ray scope advantage here. Going to be able to clear Phantoon a little bit quicker. And Iris with an excellent Aghanim too.
With a double missed triple for double and a triple clean. And we're going for some bacon soon. What Ganon has to say to us today? He talks about bugs. Okay. Since no tempered sword, Ganons can only be damaged by spin sword, spin attack, master sword.
Now Iris may get a little bit lucky here. On the bottom side, sometimes you can set up double hits with the spin attack, and may have gotten one there on the side as well. There was a nice one from the bottom, definitely got 2 hits there. And Iris gonna use the cape to try and shorten this part of the fight. Has to be careful though, because need to conserve a little bit of that for the for lighting the lamps.
Yeah, because no light cannons is invulnerable.
Meanwhile, Zentrigger now microwaving Dragon, trying to get through that in a big hurry, and
gets it. That's moment when saying microwaving, it just did 2 times.
yep. And Iris on the home stretch here, coming up on the final phase of game.
And that gets torch glitch. That means she only has to lit 1 torch. If she missed it, she needs to light the 2 torch.
And Iris hesitating just a second there to try and make sure she has time to get the spin off on Ganon. And unfortunately not getting that final arrow.
That was not the right spin, but she got it, and the biggest.
And get your G's in chat for Iris finishing up A Link to the Past. Just Mother Brain left to go.
And we are 3 hours in, and Links to the Past is done. For 1 winners.
And now Zentrigger seems to be coming to the same kind of realization that Iris did, that Fire Rod may not be required, and he pretty much go mode Meridia. Now, Zentrigger had already done Wreck Ship, so fortunately he doesn't have to do that, but he's still about 3 dungeons behind Iris here. Got to finish up the Swamp Palace, which they had to dip earlier, the Ice, but he did finish the Ice Palace, and then Ganon's Tower.
3 dungeon, I would say 1 dungeon and Ganon's Tower, since he needs only Swamp Out.
That's fair. And Iris is going to have all the tools that she needs for a speedy terrain here, including the Ice Beam from the Metroids. It's going to make that go a little bit faster than power bombing them, as well as plenty of super missiles for Mother Brain.
Super missiles and beam combo to ensure no soft lock.
Yep. She's also got more than enough energy tanks to do the stand-up glitch if she wants, or at the very least have a another optimal Mother Brain without the stand-up glitch and with the little bathroom break.
I never knew the reason why to remove gravity suit and various suit.
So, if you're... This is one of those strategies that kind of depends on your confidence in doing baby skip. So if you think you can do baby skip, there's no real reason to turn them off, but Iris is doing this so that she takes more damage and her health will drain faster against the baby Metroid here, and will let her get through this sequence a little bit quicker if in fact she doesn't intend to attempt the skip.
Precisely didn't intend to do it, but you need to time your jump real well to do the baby skip.
Yeah, there's a bunch of really complicated and technical strategy to getting through the baby skip there. Not only do you have to get a really good first jump, in which high boots are almost essential for a human to do it, you also have to get a pretty good shot at the top of your jump as well to clear lots of the sand as you continue to jump to the left. And then being able to clear all of the coral netting there on the way out, and lastly getting that last jump with a nicely timed mid-air morph is also, there's just so many different things going on, and it really speaks to how well or how much our really talented runners work at that. And Iris going to go ahead and switch back on those suits and decide not to attempt the Zeb skip, and just going to try and get through here as quickly as possible.
So here we are on Mother Brains 2.
Meanwhile, zentrigger going to be heading into Ganon's tower and getting his answer to the question of whether Fire Rod is required or. And Gilgatex, I think you're absolutely right. And that has a little bit to do with what we talked about earlier about the timing of finding the hammer. I think zentrigger checked it significantly earlier than Iris did. Iris was almost completely out of checks when she found the hammer, so she may be feeling pretty behind. And Iris gonna go ahead and damage down a little bit. Doesn't look like she's going for the stand-up glitch.
So if you don't do them, play safe.
zentrigger making the exact same play that Iris did when she was through here, in checking the hookshot cave really quick to see if he can find a sword upgrade. Unfortunately going to come up empty as we
know. And Iris going to face Mother Brain 3, and receiving the Hyper Beam. That feeling of killing Mother Brain with the Hyper Beam must feel so good. Also, even after with awful siege.
Yep. And Thalfin, I don't know exactly what happened. I wasn't watching, because usually the energy refill there is a pretty boring segment, but I have a feeling she probably pressed start pretty close to when she attached to the energy refill station, and that probably just caused a darkening of the screen. I don't know if it causes you to fill faster or anything like that.
Just a darkening of the screen, like delaying the message of energy refill. A nice shine spot there. And Iris in this escape sequence. Will she save the animals?
I feel like if you're in first place, and sometimes if you're a person who prides yourself on speedrunning, you never save the animal. I'm a little surprised zentrigger is going to pick up these fairies here. He definitely had a lot of the same bottles that Iris.
If she's going to troll the animals are actually saving them. She saved the animals.
What a stand-up gal. And Iris finishes in first place with an official SRL time of 3 hours, 11 minutes, and 54 seconds. Get your GGs and
The GG's in chat. Whew. What a sea.
and we've invited Iris for an interview. We'll see if she's interested or has. Okay, looks like Iris is going to field questions in chat, so by all means, bombard her with questions. Particularly, I guess we want to ask about your feelings about the hammer there and how you felt throughout the seed, whether you felt like you were ahead or behind.
Yeah, what was your feeling of this scene?
The hammer was in the energy tank location in the ceiling of Blueprints, which the logic wanted you to pick up the high jump boots first, but it is possible to grab those at the beginning of the
game with the damage boost.
Yeah, we thought that you checked almost every other location short of the mushroom, which your opponent did end up doing AGA 1, looking and trying to find the hammer, but the mushroom only yielded super. Yeah, we definitely clipped that and dropped that in the Discord for you, Iris.
And speaking of Fire Rod, zentrigger just get his answer of the Fire Rod. And also Iris, the mushroom was only super missile.
Yeah, Iris. Thalphon wants to know, right after the baby Metroid, you made a stop at the energy refill room, and must have done some sort of wizardry that played with the screen. And it looks like my guess was right. But I still don't know precisely what it does, but apparently you can do that.
Also, Iris, at the beginning of the siege, zentrigger was ahead, but when you get the lead, you were always in the lead. Like, zentrigger didn't quite catch.
Yeah, so it was kind of back and forth there. You were both really neck and neck at the beginning, and then let's see. So zentrigger ended up finding the hammer a few checks before Iris did. Iris, almost their very last check was the hammer, and that put Iris a little bit behind. And then trying to find the bow was the next big obstacle in Ice Palace, and Iris made the call to go to Ice Palace significantly before zentrigger did, and that was where the real switch happened, and I think where Iris got the most ahead. Both of you made pretty similar decisions after that, including go moding Meridia, and even one of the other things that put zentrigger a little bit behind was he decided to loop in Wreck Ship first and ended up making a lot of checks at Wreck Ship that Iris simply didn't have to make.
And then triggering one of these fairies.
Yep, and zentrigger showing us that this was definitely some non-trivial Ganon fighting without anything other than the Master Sword. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, Iris deciding to go against Cold Stare with only half a heart and almost made it. I think each eye had a hit or two left. And unfortunately, zentrigger's going to have to go and get some refills. And
getting I hope one fairy from the tree.
Yep.
But
looking like he's going to head to the witch's hut for those potions.
Good call.
And zentrigger gonna buy all the blue potions. And that's gonna give him plenty of both health and magic energy to use the cape to finish up Ganon.
So just a question as of that. All are you? How are you confident in your Super Metroid skills?
And zentrigger gonna get a couple double hits here while Ganon's on the bottom.
Also, make sure to give a follow to Iris for this game, as I know she's good at Link to the Past, and she just tell us that she's confident in her skills in Super Metroid. Also, for the bravery, also follow zentrigger.
And here's another good question for Iris. You're now 2-0 in this tournament. What sort of opponents do you want to see or not want to see in your third?
Oh, so you're okay with Oats and Goats, who is amazingly good at Super Metroid.
Let's see. Yeah, Andy is playing Ivan later on. And then Solsky played Zosty last week, so it's pretty unlikely that Iris would face Zosty unless we got a 2-0 versus 1-1 match.
Now I would say Andy and Ivan are commentating on a match together, not playing.
And get your G's in chat for zentrigger. Getting a valiant Ganon fight second time.
So 1G for zentrigger. And here zentrigger is beginning his Turian descent. Doing a pretty clean job of those Metroids.
And for the folks who are still here and had a great time watching this, I want to plug another match. We've actually got a double dose for you. So we're going to have two 1v1s running simultaneously on Speed Gaming 2 starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's going to be the match of Strizer and Epi, which that promises to be a pretty good match, as well as Hitaka and Trucker, probably an equally good match too. So our trackers and commentators will certainly have their hands full. There's going to be a lot going on. It's going to be even more fast-paced than this. So definitely, if you've had a great time hanging out with us watching this randomizer, check that one out in just about a half hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah, let's say we can say like in 15 minutes. I'm pretty generous there to finish this match. So let's say 30 minutes after this match, which will result in 7 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, you have two other matches at the same time. Also, as far as I know, you can if you want more of Ira's stuff in race. I know she is in the Link to the Past Fall Challenge Cup. And I don't know if she's doing the bracket, but she's there. You can cheer her up, and also to cheer her up is giving a fall. And for zentrigger, I don't know him very well, so I can't say if he's participating in other tourney or such. But he did get a Zebite skip just there.
Yep, so Zeb Skip is pretty interesting. So what you've got to do there is you've got to have ice, and I believe you have to have wave beam too in order to do that. And you need to freeze that bottom Rinka as soon as it spawns, and then you need to take some damage from any source other than the lava, and do a spin jump without the screw attack, and land whenever you land with that spin jump. If you hold left, instead of landing on the platform, you'll land on the Rinka, and that's going to cause Samus to clip into the Zebs a little bit, and then you just do another jump and hold to the left to get right through it. So that one is the one trick that no matter how much I watched it, didn't really help me understand what I needed to do, but when somebody wrote it down what needed to happen and what was going on, it made a lot more sense.
And let's get some height and chat, because when Mother Brains do, and they're Mother Brains 3.
Yeah, so I think the short charge version is that you charge a Shine Spark there, which is, I think it's a Stutter 3. Like, it's a really difficult short charge, and it's through a door. So if you fail it once and try it again, it almost becomes not worth doing anymore after that. But you need to charge a spark and then charge diagonally from the bottom to do a diagonal spark in order to get yourself into the Zeb there. Um, and unfortunately, zentrigger taken a death there.
Cause of his reserve thing. Main.
So here you'll probably get to see the Zeb skip again. So he's going to freeze that Rinka, take some damage, jump, spin jump onto it, and then jump through. So again, that spin jump onto it, causing him to clip into a little bit because the game places his feet onto the Rinka instead of on the platform. And it only works that way if the Rinka is frozen in such a way and you spin jump onto it while you're in an invulnerability period. If you don't take the damage, you won't be able to stand on the Rinka correctly.
And getting it twice in a row, it's, I would say, proved its skills and consistency. And now it gets it right. Get eye chat, cause now it's hyper beam time.
So as zentrigger finishes up Mother Brain here, one last time I'm going to plug Vi.gg, who has put up the money for the prize money for this tournament, currently in the amount of $400. They take bets on the various matches, and definitely worth checking out. They will put up some of the commission and some of the bets will also contribute to that prize pool. So definitely check them out if you like what you're seeing here, or if you think you know who's going to win what. But Randomizer is always a tricky one, and that's vi.gg again. Additionally, I want to thank our runners, Iris in chat, and zentrigger's invited for a post-game interview. Not sure if he's going to be joining us or fielding questions in chat. But definitely give their streams a look. And then once again, want to thank Wesker for doing the tracking for 3 hours and 40 minutes here without a bathroom break, being a real champ. My co-commentator LJM, who stepped in at the last possible minute to help me out here today and make sure that I wasn't all alone in this. So thank you again.
And I thank you too, for your SM knowledge, because if you weren't knowledgeable enough, I would be in quite in trouble commentating this and helping viewers in chat. And also, good job, Wesker. Also, zentrigger is going to save the animals. I also want to thank Total for this randomizer. And Speed Gaming for hosting this tournament.
Yep, definitely getting your value for saving the animals today. Both players saving the animals. That's pretty unusual in these races. And looks like zentrigger will unfortunately not be joining us, but let me check out his official SRL time. Finished in second place with a time of 3 hours, 37 minutes, and 2 seconds. GG zentrigger. And with that, we're going to go ahead and bid you folks good night. I'm going to go ahead and let the credits roll so you can check out zentrigger's stats, but then I'm going to close out the stream. Again, thank you all very much for spending your evening with us. Remember, there's that great 4-person race coming up, 2 1v1s. They'll be playing the same seed, and that's coming up in about a half hour on Speed Gaming 2. So again, thank you very much. Good night.